Peace, fam. It's your girl Kia, aka The Concrete Rose, and I'm back with another video. So, as you guys can tell by the title, today is going to be a late night chat, and we are going to be discussing the ancestors. Who are the ancestors? How do you connect to the ancestors? How do you hear the ancestors? How do you know that the ancestors are communicating with you? And if they're not communicating with you, what do you do? Right? So, first and foremost, who are the ancestors? The ancestors are your family, your loved ones that have passed over. Okay? So, we are talking about the dead. We're talking about communicating with the dead. But the thing about it is that the ancestors are not dead, honey. They're very much so alive. They're very much so present in our life and along our spiritual journey. A lot of us are being guided by our ancestors. All of us are being guided by our ancestors. If you are on this spiritual journey, 9 times out of 10, your ancestors led you here, whether you know it or not. Okay? Ancestors can be people who have shared the, same blood as you, the same DNA as you. But, for people who have been adopted or estranged from their family, they may ask like, oh, well, I don't know my blood family. I'm not close with my blood family. You still have family, right? You still have people that took care of you. You still have people that looked after you, right? You still have people that loved on you and cared for you and looked out for you. Maybe a mother who maybe was not your blood mother, right? Or maybe a father figure that you had in your life, right? These are the ancestors, you know? Even as far as like pets and things go, right? These can be guides for you in the afterlife. Okay? So when we're talking about our ancestors again, it can be blood relatives, right? Moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandpas, grandmothers, cousins. If you're a parent, right, and you lost a child, right, that child can be an ancestor. A lot of people think that ancestors have to be older than them, right? They have to be generations back, which you do have ancestors that are generations back. You do have ancestors that you don't even know their name, and they are probably your hardest hitters, okay? But yeah, ancestors can be younger than you, right? They don't have to be older than you. They don't have to be elders or anything like that. Ancestors are simply people that have shared the same blood as you, DNA as you, or also people that looked after you and that cared for you and that made sure that you were okay in this physical life, that have passed over and that are now in the afterlife. Okay, so those are the ancestors. Now, how do you connect to the ancestors? How do you reach out to them? How do you hear from them? How can you communicate with them? A lot of people will tell you that the first step is building an ancestor altar. And maybe if, your ancestors are calling you to do that, go right ahead. Do what your ancestors are telling you to do. But sometimes, especially if you're somebody who is not used to spirit communication, if you're somebody who is not used to, or even if you're somebody who's not disciplined enough in spirit communication, and you're just now starting and you're just now beginning in your journey, probably building an altar is not the best choice, right? because altars are portals for spirit to come through. And if you are not sure in what you are doing, it may not be the best decision, okay? So I think that when we're talking about altars, we have to remember that we are our first altars, right? Back in the day, when our ancestors were, communicating with spirit and doing their things, a lot of them did not have these fancy tools that we have today, okay? A lot of them did not have the funds to provide those fancy tools, okay, or to buy those fancy tools. You are the altar. And I speak as someone who has struggled with self-discipline. I have struggled with my mental health. I have struggled with these things. And so something that my ancestors, stressed to me is just self-care. Simply taking care of yourself, right? What do they tell you to do when setting up an altar, right? You get a white cloth, you put out some water, you put out some candles, right? So how can you translate that to yourself and your body? You may want to wear your ancestors' favorite color, if you know that, or you may want to wear some white clothing. Drink some water, care for yourself. Make sure you're showering. Make sure you're moisturizing your skin. Make sure you're praying, right? Over yourself, over your family, over your life. Make sure you're giving thanks to your ancestors. Whether you know their names or not, they know you. They're watching over you and they're guiding you, right? And so just saying a simple thank you to my ancestors. Thank you for guiding me. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for watching over me. A simple thank you to your ancestors goes a long way, because it's simply showing them that you recognize them, right? So giving thanks, giving praise to them, giving love to yourself, giving to yourself, resting. That's something that a lot of our ancestors did not have the privilege to do. Simply resting, taking a nap. As someone who is a mom, who works, who has daily demands and responsibilities, a simple nap goes a long way. The ancestors want you to rest your body and your head, These simple things can wake up the ancestors. These simple things can show the ancestors that you care for them and that you love them and that you recognize that they're here for you, right? How else can you connect to the ancestors? Read. Read all the books you can, depending on your specific race or ethnicity, right? Read books on your history. Read books on what your ancestors practiced, the things that your ancestors believed in, right? Before colonization. Read up on these things. Get all the books you can, right? Reading and educating yourself. These are things that some of our ancestors did not have the privilege to do. Simply reading, simply owning a book, being able to own a book, being able to read, right? Having the ability to read was a privilege. So sitting down and reading, and before you read, right? Setting the intentions, because your intentions are everything, right? Setting the intentions that, okay, as I'm reading this particular book, this is the way that I'm venerating my ancestors. Ancestors, in this moment, right now, as I'm reading this book, as I'm listening to this podcast, as I'm doing this research, as I'm going down this rabbit hole, as I'm doing these specific things, this is the way in which I am venerating you. Another way to give back to your ancestors and to wake them up and to communicate with them is to venerate Mother Earth, Mother Nature. A lot of our ancestors are buried, right? So giving back to the land, giving back to the creatures of the land, feeding the birds, feeding the squirrels, right? Feeding animals, watering your soil, gardening, learning about roots and herbs and their metaphysical properties and also their healing benefits, right? Both in the spiritual and in the physical. These are ways that you can venerate your ancestors. Very, very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be over the top, especially if you are just beginning. The ancestors know what you know, right? They know where you are on your journey. They know your fears. They know your desires. They know the things that you've gone through in your life. And so they're not expecting anything of you that you cannot give or that you don't understand how to give, right? As you're giving back to Mother Earth, you can set the intentions and say out loud or, say to yourself, right? Because your ancestors are within you. Remember, you are your first altar. The ancestors are within you. Y'all share the same DNA, right? So you can even speak to yourself if you live in an environment where ancestors are looked at as bad or demonic or evil or, whatever. You can say these things to yourself. You can set the intentions within, right? But saying to yourself, as you are, giving offerings to Mother Nature, you can say, ancestors, this is my way of thanking you. This is my way of giving back to you. These are my offerings to you. Thank you so much. I recognize you. I see you. Again, thank you for your wisdom and your protection and your love over me and your guidance. Thank you. Right? So those are ways that you can communicate with your ancestors. Those are simple ways that you can communicate with your ancestors when first starting out. Now, how do you hear your ancestors? Because you can communicate all day long, but how do you know that they are communicating back? And this is where it's important to tap into your spiritual gifts. This is where it is important to meditate, right? To pause, to practice being present in your physical reality. This is why grounding is so important, right? Because when you ground, everything becomes still. Everything it's like it allows you to zoom in is the best way that I can describe that. And so spirit is very subtle in the way that they communicate. Now, if you just going through some crazy shit in your life, you doing some crazy shit, okay, spirit might be a little loud. Spirit might be like, excuse me, honey, what is you doing? Okay, I'm right here. I'm watching you. Okay? But for the most part, for the most part, spirit is very subtle. It's these simple things. And let me tell you, spirit, especially if you just starting out on your spiritual journey, unless you just got the gift like that, spirit is not gonna show up in full fucking form. Okay? You're probably not gonna see no full apparition. All right? Unless you have that gift and unless you are okay with spirit showing up that way, then you do you. But for the most part, spirit is very subtle. Spirit comes as nudges, as a conviction, as a knowing, right? Spirit comes through other people. You know, spirit may deliver messages through other people, and you're like, damn, I've been getting the nudge to do that. You know, maybe you've been getting the nudge to garden, right? Maybe you've been getting the nudge to garden. And someone, you know, maybe someone in your family, maybe a random stranger, whatever, you know, somebody tells you like, you should garden, or I came across this plant. You know, like it's just little stuff to where it's just like sometimes you can miss it. And the more that you practice, the more that you communicate with the ancestors, you will start to pick up on their messages. Like you will start to be like, oh shit, okay, that's my ancestors talking. Like I was just thinking about that. I just had a dream about that. They come through dreams. And I just got chills on my body when I said that. They come through dreams. You can sit down and write. Journaling, I always tell y'all to journal, right? When you're journaling, like sometimes I just have an urge to journal. I don't know what I want to journal about. I just get the urge to want to write. And as I'm writing, I'm like, I didn't even know all of this. Like, I didn't know I was feeling all of this. I didn't know I was going through all of this. I didn't know my ancestors was telling me to do all of this. Like, it's very, very subtle. It's in the everyday things, right? Maybe you keep noticing that same bird popping up around you no matter where you go. Honey, that's an ancestor. Okay? Maybe you keep noticing, I don't know. Maybe you keep feeling tingles when you hear a certain thing, when you hear a certain word, when you hear a certain phrase, right? That's the ancestors speaking to you. Maybe you get an urge to do something. You don't know where it's coming from. You really into this one single herb. You can't get it out your head. You can't shake it. You know, now next thing you know, you're going down rabbit holes, you know, trying to figure out what's the healing properties of this herb, right? That is the ancestors. That herb could you know, help you with some of the issues that you're going through, whether it be physically or spiritually, right? That is the ancestors. The ancestors are very subtle. Spirit is very subtle. So it takes tapping in. It takes meditating. And meditation can look really different for everybody. It doesn't have to be you sitting down on the floor, cross-legged, talking about some like it don't have to be that. It really don't have to be that. Like, if you know that a specific ancestor loved fishing, right? And you go out and you fish, again, setting those intentions like, this is the way that I'm venerating my ancestor. This is the way that I'm communicating with my ancestor right now. I'm going to go out and I'm going to fish for maybe an hour. Don't have to be nothing long. Don't have to be nothing crazy, right? And you just go out there. And as you're fishing, as you're just sitting there watching the water, you just start getting messages. Things just start coming to you, coming to you, coming to you. That's the ancestors. Very subtle. It's in the everyday things, y'all. It's really in the everyday things. Y'all know that I pull cards and things, you know. Sometimes it can be that you're drawn to a specific deck, right? You walk into a metaphysical shop and you see that deck. You go on Amazon and you see that deck. You scrolling down Instagram and you see that deck. It's just like, bro, this deck keeps showing up everywhere. That's the ancestors communicating with you. One of my ancestors led me to a specific deck that they wanted. Some of my decks have been gifted to me. It's just like, yo, I'm telling you, very subtle, very subtle. But something that I want to stress to you guys is that the ancestors are around you. You would not be watching this video if the ancestors was not around you, honey. So get that out of your mind right now that, oh, my ancestors not around me. They don't care about me. Oh, like, no, they're there. They're there. Telling you, I don't even know if y'all can hear me. I don't even know if y'all can hear me because this rain is coming down. The ancestors is calling all of us to venerate them, to love them, to recognize them, so that way they can help us. So that way they can look out for us. So that way they can provide for us. Of course, God is in everything that I do, that we do. But the ancestors are very much so present, very much so here, very much so deserving of your love and your thanks and your praise and your prayer as well. The ancestors are not bad. They are not evil. They are not demonic. Yeah, you might got some ancestors back there that's some motherfucking hitters that don't play about you. But the ancestors come in love. They come in protection. They come with wisdom. They come with guidance. They come with experience. The ancestors have lived, honey. They've lived. They've gone through shit. You think you're the first person that's going through what you're going through? No, baby. You got an ancestor back there that's been through that, that's lived through that, that see that you going through that want to help you get through that. So it's time for us to uplift our ancestors. Even if you don't know them by name. I mean, if you know them by name, call them by name. But even if you don't know them by name, give thanks, give praise, give offerings, give love to yourself, love to them. And just let them know that you see them, that you hear them, that you recognize them. A simple recognition goes a very long way. A very long way, y'all. All right? I love y'all so much, and I appreciate y'all so much. And thank y'all for tuning in, honey. Okay? The ancestors sent me here. Okay, the ancestors sent me here. All right. I love y'all so much. Peace and blessings, and I will see y'all in my next video. Peace.